So, Oren, as a student, I've been wondering how the whole 8-module setup came to be and how the MBAI program came to be.
I think the whole program development, the whole concept of this thing is fascinating. We began with a basic proposition. We wanted to create a program that was very different from any sort of curriculum that you could see in any other school. We think we do a very good job here at USF. We think we do very well in small, intimate classes. We think we do very well with faculty-student interaction, but we wanted to go a step beyond. We wanted to really create a whole new value add. And what was really interesting about this is that we basically stepped off the traditional curriculum development track. First of all, we chose a team of folks who, were slightly maniacal in how they approach things. We had a team, all of whom had one foot in academia and one foot in the so-called real world. So it wasn't just academic. We would start around very critical themes and issues and constituencies in business and build a curriculum around that. So in other words, we had investor, okay? Then you build finance and economics and accounting around that.
Right.
We had innovator. Then you talk about the personal attributes necessary for innovation, entrepreneurship, the organizational requirements for entrepreneurship. We had competitor. So instead of building a course just on strategy, you start talking about, okay, how can you focus on competitors? And you build an entire framework around that. So we build the functional skills around key constituencies, which we thought was more relevant, more compelling, and I think it's much more hard-hitting. And we enjoyed it. We enjoyed creating it. We were passionate about delivering it, and I think the students, you would know better than anyone, but I think the students really found real value in it.
Definitely. So it sounds like you took kind of like private industry approach to what would be necessary in the real world versus an academic approach, kind of which would be theory-based and kind of what other universities were doing.
Yeah. Well, that was our starting point. What we wanted to do was to do what a lot of private sector companies have found. In other words, that what you do is you build your functions around product lines, around market niches, and so forth, around geographies. And so that's what we did. We said, well, what are the critical issues? And then let's build the functions around that. But the focus is always on something that would be of real relevance to the student.
So, Oren, how was it decided that you would teach customer and competitor? 2 of the modules that we took.
I felt comfortable with that. I would not have signed up for something if I didn't think I could actually deliver it with excellence. Someone who wants to just teach a course in marketing or strategy is going to basically kill the course, because the course is not about strategy or marketing. It's about weaving strategy, organization, leadership, marketing, finance, whatever you draw towards dealing with customers and competitors. And now in my case, it worked out really nicely, and as you know, because you were in the summer program. And that, by the way, that's how passionate I was about it. I had not taught in the summer for about 1,000 years. There was no way I wanted to do that. But I was so intrigued by this, and this was the launch of the program.
Right.
If you remember, I explained that to you. Right. We're all on uncharted ground.
Right. As a student, the experience for us was incredible. We really thoroughly enjoyed the dynamics, the relationships we had with each professor in different areas of emphasis. One of the things that resonated with me and my fellow students was that it was very nonlinear and there was less emphasis on textbook. I know in both of your courses, customer and competitor, we didn't have a textbook. We had 6 or 7 key books in key areas that you felt were necessary in order to teach us your goals. And I think that, to me now, looking back, seems so logical. Tapping into my work experience overseas, nothing happens in an office linearly.
Yeah, I think it helped us a lot, certainly helped me a lot. The fact that there was a really careful selection of who was going to be in that cohort. Everyone there not only had the grades and the smarts, but they'd all had experience in real world organizations. Therefore, they could be very flexible because they knew how organizations worked, because they understood that, okay, we're trying to integrate all this. That was your job, integrate all this, and then here's a case. We're going to analyze that, put the stuff together. It wasn't at all linear, but there was a control to the chaos, just like in real life.
So is that how you operate your consultancy? I know that you do some work outside of the university. Is that how you see organizations out there today working, at least the successful ones?
Well, when I worked, as I mentioned, at the State Department with Colin Powell, he would always say, no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. And so the idea here is that certainly there's a plan. I gave a syllabus, and it was very comprehensive. I would set the parameters. That's how businesses run. Right. And I work with a lot of companies, and it's not that I bring in chaos. I try to bring in some discipline to it. We called it in class a kind of a disciplined lunacy, to approach business in that way. And that's where you get sustained competitive advantage.
I think we really resonated with it. We knew it was going to be intense. We really purposefully stepped up to our own limits and see how we could also multitask and do teams to get presentations done on time. So I have to be very frank with you, we were all surprised at our own abilities.
As you remember, we looked at customer and competitor in a very unconventional way. We talked about things like which customers to fire. We talked about which competitors to actually do joint ventures with. Right. We looked at a lot of strange things in terms of how do you use the concept of customer and competitor to build sustained competitive advantage, right? And by definition, we went on the edge a lot, and that, I think, created value. We're going to get more and more folks doing this sort of stuff, not just in this program, but we're building other programs.
It was done very, very well. I think we all definitely enjoyed it, and it made perfect sense.
What we're trying to do is to make it seamless, so it's not just disjointed, but we're trying to create a whole experience where at the end of the day you say, wow, we really looked at business from an advanced perspective in a very different but much more useful way. And we're going to try to take that same spirit and develop other programs as well. That's what I think is pretty exciting here.
I think it's wonderful.